Hey, this is Seth with In Demand Career. I show people how to get life-changing jobs in digital marketing with no previous experience or education. And that includes my very special guest today, Asa, who was working in airport security and very unhappy with his job when he found my course. He hustled very hard, and now he is making $75,000 a year as a digital marketer. He's very happy with his career. He's able to support his family, and I'm very excited to share his story with you. Thanks for being here, Asa.
It's good to be here.
Awesome, man. So why don't you tell people a little bit about your current job that you have right now?
So I'm Chief Strategy Officer of RLC Media. I have been working here for about 2.5 years. And basically what I've come to be at the agency is really the one who's executing the vision and running multiple teams to execute that vision. So not really doing much marketing myself, but I'm running a lot of teams who are doing all the marketing.
That's awesome. And so you're in a leadership position.
Yeah.
And when you say teams running marketing, what is it like? Well, you got a Google Partners hat on your head. So I think Google Ads primarily, or is it Facebook too?
Yeah, Google Ads, SEO. We do Facebook ads, but primarily Google Ads, SEO, and web design.
Great. And what kind of budgets are you talking about?
I mean, we've worked with anything from, close to 100 grand to, $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
What we really specialize in is, because it's easy to be a good marketer when you have, $50,000 in your budget. Not so good to be it's not so easy to be a good marketer when you have $300. So we primarily focus on educating our clients on what an actual good return is for your money and how to measure those things cross channels. So you don't have channels fighting over a conversion, but you have your channels working together in harmony to provide a desired end result. So that's primarily what we do, whether you have a small budget or big budget.
So how much are you making at this job?
So right now I'm making about 75,000 a year.
That's awesome, man. And that's a big shift from working in airport security. What were you making back then when you were working that job?
I was making about $15 or $16 an hour.
Oh, wow.
I was also working about 80 hours a week.
Wow. So that's like $30,000 a year, but even less, like $15,000 if you factor in all the extra work. And at this job, before we share how you got here, I mean, it sounds like you really enjoy the job. What's the work-life balance like compared to what it was like before?
It's great. The work-life balance looks like I go into work at 9. I get off right around 5. I'm able to spend time with my family. I'm able to, be around for events. I'm able to do really anything that I want to do as long as the work is getting done. It doesn't really matter, So that is wildly different than what I used to be.
We've heard that again and again, guys, in digital marketing. What's so great about this field is that it is a practical field. It's all about results. So it's like you can get results in this amount of time that they don't care. It's not like other jobs where it sounds like the airport security or people working in office jobs where you get micromanaged almost like you're a school child and people are, pushing you and saying, you can't do this, you can't do that. You're treated like an adult. And you said you go into the office. So the job is not remote, or is it becoming remote?
Yeah, it's becoming remote. We're getting there. But right now we do have an office in like 2 minutes away from my house. So it's convenient.
Yeah.
So,
but it's going to be great once it's remote and you're going to really have some time to spend with your family.
Yeah. It's when we go fully remote, it's going to be so much easier to work as a team as well, because sometimes, people come in late, people, they're driving an hour to work. Then you have, people who don't even live in the same state. It's just easier to get us all on the same page of, jumping on a Google Meets rather than, trying to have some people in person and then some people over, a call.
Yeah, that's really a good point. That's another reason why remote work has caught on so much after what happened a few years ago. It's just more practical. And these commutes can be, I used to have to spend 2 hours in the car every day when I lived in LA, By the way, where do you live?
So I live in Crystal Lake, Illinois. It's right outside of Chicago, about an hour.
Cool, man. Let's people always want to know, how did you get from, working in airport security to where you are now? So, what inspired you to take an interest in digital marketing, and how did you begin your journey?
Yeah, so I started in digital marketing or learning about digital marketing in about 2019 when a good friend of mine was bugging me about it and telling me that it's my dream job. I just didn't know it yet. And he told me about your course, and I started, dabbling in it. I started going through it, but at that time I was living in a very unhealthy lifestyle, and I just needed time to, realize where I was at, take a self-assessment, and really make a decision to put my life towards a better purpose than just myself. And that happened in 2019. And after that, I took your courses again, and I started. So I'm sorry, that was 2020. I took your courses again, and then a week later, I got a job at an agency doing, Google ads, and started at, 16 an hour. But I proved my worth, like you were saying earlier. If you bring the results in, people are happy to promote, people are happy to pay you more. You just have to prove your worth, and you have to bring value to a company. So it wasn't long before I'm in my position that I'm in now. It's been 2.5 years.
That's awesome, man. So you touched on some really, really good things there, which is, first of all, I remember we talked about this. I looked at your records, and I say you were in the course for a couple months in 2019 and you didn't get any results, but you also, as you said, you weren't really focused. You weren't able to put the energy into the course. You had other things distracting you in your life. And everybody, that's very, very common. I could look at my path to success in the same way. It wasn't until I was fully focused and had a real inspiration and dedication to change my life that I got my first job in digital marketing.
Yeah.
So that's very common too, where people will take the course in one state of mind and then come back. And it was really fast. I remember I looked at your order back in 2021, and then you did send me an email very quickly.
Yeah.
And so it's part of a big, it's all cumulative, because I think obviously if you did something in 2019 that gave you the knowledge to then get a job so quickly. I think if you just signed up fresh in 2021, I don't know if you would have gotten a job in 1 week that quickly, but you clearly had more purpose and drive. And I don't know if you at that point had married your wife or had a kid at that point.
No, not yet.
But you
that
sounded
definitely spurred on the career.
Yeah, it sounded like you were very focused at that point. And as I say to everybody watching the videos again and again, it's totally fine to get an entry-level job that pays less. So long as you are getting that experience, and then you can leverage that experience either at your own, it sounds like you stuck with the same company, which is fine as long as you're happy, or you can go to another company and they'll pay you more once you have that experience and you're bringing the results. That's all it's about. It's not about what can you do for me as an employee. It's about what can you bring to the company, and then those companies will start to really value that. But let me ask you just a little bit about the progression, because you started at 15, 16, but you didn't jump right to this position right away, did you? Wasn't there something in the middle?
There was a lot in the middle. So I was hired on technically as an SEM specialist, primarily doing Google ads. Now, I was starting off around $16 an hour for 3 months, and I had a trial run. And mind you, I went from $16 an hour at the airport, 80 hours a week, to $16 an hour, 28 hours a week. So it was a big cut, but it was worth it. So I was doing this, and after the 90 days, I jumped on a call with my boss, and he had been reviewing my work the entire time. And he was like, we really love your work. You're doing a good job. We're going to bump you up to 21 an hour. I was like, sweet. So much better than 16. And then slowly but surely, I think it was about 6 months later, I was engaged at this point. It was around February of 2021. And I was realizing I was going to have a family soon. So I asked for another raise, and they gave it to me because I was bringing value to the company. through continued education, through continued just bringing excitement to the company. And there just aren't that many good Google Ads people out there. It's a very, in demand, but there's not a whole lot of people to fill the roles. So they gave me the next raise, and that brought me to $21.50 an hour, and that was helpful. And then I got married in September of 2022, and this was a moment in my life where I realized I got to step up my game even more, because I have a wife now, and she wanted to be a mother. She wanted to stay at home with our baby, and so I wanted to make that happen, but I couldn't do that on $21.50 an hour, and so I brought it to my boss. I told him, hey, my wife and I are pregnant, and we want to be a one income family, so I'm going to need a little bit more money. And he was totally accommodating of it. He was very understanding. And this might not be the case in all agencies, but my boss is, a dear friend of mine, and he understands, being in my position. And so he accommodated my request, as well as because he couldn't pay me, what I wish I was getting paid. We worked out some deal where I can get a better title that will safeguard the lack of money. Whereas most CSOs out there are getting paid close to 200 grand, if not more. I'm okay with taking 75 a year and getting that title to start bolstering up my resume, and betting against my current company. And I've told him this too, betting against it, but also working in it, so that either way I'm going to be making eventually that 200 grand or whatever.
Right. So let me just clarify something. So that's just for the people who aren't familiar with the industry, or these terms.
Yeah.
So just so I'm clear, so you were making, to be honest, it's a small agency, but and you seem very happy there, which is also a lot of people, work-life balance, you're happy at your company. People often will in some cases take less money, but you need to know your worth, so that that was way less than you should have been making at 21 an hour. It's great because you just started your career, but over 6 months or a year, you got to be getting into the $60K, $30 an hour arena. So did he bump you right up to, when you told him you have a family coming, did he bump you right up to the 75K?
Yeah, we had a three month gap, and just moved straight in.
That's amazing, because that's almost double. Well, not double.
Yeah.
It's almost double, which is great to know. But this is the thing, guys, you also have to understand, and it's good to be friendly with your boss or your company and have good relationships. But on LinkedIn, there's something funny, because people try to create a great culture. And I always talk about the great culture, but it's still a business, guys. So if you have a company where they're kind of like, hey, we're a family, but who cares? So that's very good, because that also shows he had the budget. If you're managing all these accounts, these guys have the money. When I worked at my first agency, I also had to initially, and again, in that first year, it's fine. It's okay to be a little underpaid if you are, getting the experience put on your resume.
Yeah.
But I looked at what the accounts, I knew what the CEO was making. I saw the money coming in, and I'm like, dude, you've got to give me a $2. You got to give me this raise. You have to. It's absurd that you're not. And some people struggle with being that direct. I would say direct, and they think, oh, I'm being pushy, I might upset somebody. No, this is something I try to teach my students. So it's really good that you're really clear in your communication, and you have this title, because I looked at your salary and I said, this is, first of all, to go from working all those hours in an airport security job that you did not, it was stressful. Now you have a job you really like, you can provide for your family. This is incredible, but you should still be making even more money than you are now. And I was asking about that. And what you're saying to me is, essentially, you're on a track to have an ownership position in the company.
Yeah.
Should you continue there? And I interviewed I'm going to post the interview of one of my students who is making 200K, because it was very similar. He started at the ground up. He started very early on in the company, and now he is in that ownership position. So what that
Yeah.
means, guys, is that, yeah, at a certain point, he may, be owning the agency and making, 6 figures. But if for whatever reason that doesn't happen, you just go to another company.
Yeah.
So that's really
Yeah.
good. You're making your bets. It's
Yeah.
good.
And I mean, my boss is one of the most reasonable men I've ever met. We've never had an issue talking about finances together. We've never had an issue. Like if I need something, this guy's gone out of his way, and I'm just gonna take a second to brag on my boss because a good boss is hard to come by. But my boss, I mean, he's sent me out of his own bank account money in times where I just needed it. Because yeah, you sometimes you run into hard times and things break and you gotta work. But it's funny you mentioned that part about we're family, because there are certain aspects of business where it's like if you screw it bad enough, you're gonna get kicked out. But with a family, if you screw it bad enough, you're always accepted back into the family. You don't lose your last name. But I will say this is the closest job I've ever been to where it has felt like family, just because of the way I'm treated, because the way that my boss, actually does take care of me. And it's not just because, I'm just such an amazing person. It's because I'm bringing value to the company, right? And so I can't stress it enough. Continued education is so important. And getting into not just learning Google Ads and the platform, but learning business finances is so important so that you can help your customers see how you are actually benefiting them through marketing and understanding it from a holistic perspective, not just a silo. So
Yeah. Well, that's why, guys, in the course, it's good advice. That's why I teach, even if you're in PPC, you should know SEO, you should know the basics, you should understand funnels, you need to understand. I give, people a really, that's a good word, holistic perspective. And speaking of what you said earlier, I wanted to bring that back up. You said, there aren't that many good Google Ads specialists. And I'm happy you said that, because this is what I say every month when I do my walkthroughs. That's why people keep getting up. Guys, this is the great thing. As I said, the colleges are so inept. They're so incompetent. They are still literally, it kind of pains me. And I get these kids who have a marketing degree. They're literally learning stuff from the 80s. They're learning about statistics and microeconomic theory and just nonsense that has nothing to do with digital, and these curriculums don't include digital, or if they do, it's like an elective. It's hilarious. There's like one class, like one semester, 3 credits, and it's like, oh yes, there's this little thing called Google and Facebook. Ha ha ha. They're so cute, but you should focus on microeconomic theory or whatever. And because of this, because there's all these people being churned out by higher education and nobody's learning the skills, you have this situation, which continues. And you've heard it from, from here, you've heard it in other interviews. And then, so the point for people who are starting out is, I would say, is definitely continue to educate yourself. And that's what I teach you in the course, but feel very confident that even when you learn the basics, like Asa did, you will get these opportunities.
Yeah. Learning the basics is 90% of it.
I'm sorry, I cut you off. Can you repeat that?
The thing, learning the basics is like 90% of it, because everybody's looking for the next big hack, but those hacks only last so long. I mean, if 2020 taught us anything, right? When you have a huge pool of people online, it's unpredictable behavior. These hacks that worked in 2019, they don't work in 2020. Mm-hmm. I mean, machine learning, I used to be one of Google's most, adversarial evangelists for automated bid strategies on Google Ads. But now that I've seen how they can work, man, I'll tell you, in the right context, maximize conversions, maximize conversion values, maximize clicks. All of those are deadly tools in your tool belt. You just have to have the basics down.
Right. And
if you don't.
And you're speaking to some more advanced things again for people. A lot of people watching the interview talking about. We're saying, and this speaks to AI. This speaks to a huge conversation that's
Mhm.
happening. But what I teach people in the course is there still is always a struggle between advertisers and Google for control of these accounts. This is why these jobs exist. Google is constantly trying to automate everything. They're trying, they want to control. It's like you go to the casino and blackjack, and the blackjack dealer is like, wouldn't you like to, or someone from the casino comes down and says, why don't you hit again? You know, and this is what it's like in Google. It's like it's your money, but Google's trying to tell you how to spend your money. And they're the casino. But so there's this, it's very nuanced. This is why these jobs are important. People in the course, I actually had a guy ask me today, he said, oh, are you going to teach me Performance Max? And I said, which is this incredibly automated thing that you should not do with your account when you start out. And what I teach people when they start out is how to do everything manually. It's like you're learning wax on, wax off. That's what, that's what people want to see in an entry-level role. And then when you get a bigger account, when you have an account that has all this data, then these automated tools are part of, you said, your toolbox. But it's also a reason why, you know, I'm not worried about AI with digital marketing. It's not, robots aren't just going to suddenly magically do it. You can't just completely automate an account because it'll just blow up and not perform well at all. So I know we're getting into some more advanced things. I don't even know, much about Google Ads, but what's exciting is to think, man, you were airport security a few years ago. Now you're talking about all these advanced things. And I like what you said about the basics, because it's true. I teach the fundamentals. And even with AI, people come to me and they go, oh, shouldn't I be learning everything about ChatGPT and this and AI learning? I said, no, don't, because it's trending right now, and it will be part of the industry, but it's not what hiring managers care about at this moment. They're not going to not going to be looking at you and saying, oh, so how well do you use AI? They want to make sure you know the fundamentals of Google Ads. And then once you're hired, they're going to go, okay, well, here's how we're using AI as a tool. You know? So don't chase trends, find this, a fundamentally in-demand skill set.
Absolutely. And thinking about, man, just with the conversation of AI taking over jobs, for Google, anyways, I can speak directly to Google. AI is not going to take over your job. It's actually just going to be promoting you, because now you can oversee the manual work that AI is doing, and it actually frees up your time to move up. So you don't need to be a Google Ads specialist anymore. You can be a Google Ads strategist and let AI take care of the specialist stuff of, flipping levers and, doing whatever the little things are. But basics are essential to know. You have to understand the basics. And especially guys, conversion tracking.
And I want to just continue to bring this back to you guys who are watching this that maybe don't even know what we're talking about yet. It's totally fine. Remember, guys, I was remember when I got into the field, I was a film school graduate who couldn't, and I worked in accounting. I waited tables. I didn't know anything about Google. I didn't know anything about websites. And most of my students, if you watch these interviews, were the same way. So I know we're talking about some advanced stuff. What I want to tell you is that, remember, there are like, I don't know, 500, I don't know how many millions of small businesses in the US and then across the world. And most of this is still, there's like huge corporations spending millions, and there's law firms and there's giant, Best Buy and these big companies. But a lot of these clients are smaller, and it could be anywhere from $1,000 a month to $5,000 to $10,000 a month, which is still not that big of a budget. And this is where a lot of my students get their start, in a smaller, simpler accounts. You start out again with the basics. And what I try to teach my students is a little, like sneak preview of the course, is that the AI does not help small businesses in the beginning. It screws things up. And this is why I said too, is that every advancement that's happening in AI is happening. It's not going to impact Google Ads jobs, because Google Ads jobs are still happening inside the Google Ads platform. And Google has been increasing their AI and automations in Google Ads, and it does help advanced accounts. But what happens again and again is that these Google, if a small business signs up to have, say, their restaurant, advertised on Google, they click all the automation options, and Google doesn't understand anything about their business, and it just blows their budget. And then that's why they need you. So I'm getting all evangelical about the.
I totally agree. because you have to stand in between the gap of the client and Google. Google may be well-meaning. I don't always think they are, but I'm going to believe that they are well-meaning. But you have to stand in the gap between your client and Google and determine what's best for the client, especially when you're running a campaign that maybe the conversion tracking is still a little bit wonky and you're not getting full data in, or you're running it in a holistic manner, right? One of the things that my agency does is we don't actually use much of the native data from the Google Ads platform to determine whether our efforts are working or not, because it only tells you what happened in that little part of the journey, right? You have to look at, well, how did Facebook play into these sales?
Yeah.
How did SEO play into these sales? How did the billboard play into these sales? You have to look at it all.
What do you I'm going to
necessary.
speak to this just because again we're getting into some
Yeah.
advanced, but I think this is cool because we're going to talk more
Yeah.
about your life in a moment. But I like
Yeah,
to, we're getting into specifics here. So
Yeah.
by the way, I'm just curious, what platform do you use to track all this? Because this is absolutely the modern marketing journey. Even with my course, I found it. I hired I actually hired a platform one time to try to figure out, because I would get sales for my course and I'd be like, I don't know where the heck these people came from. And I'm trying to track, did it come from Instagram? Did it come from Facebook? Did it come from LinkedIn? And this is a challenge that, that companies have. So are you using one platform or different platforms to track that?
Well, right now we're using spreadsheets, Google Sheets, which is like the #1 tool in my tool belt. Google Sheets, Google Analytics for now, and the back end of the customer's, business. What money actually came into your bank account, like,
right?
Because we can get a little nerdy here. I'll just touch on it for a second, but looking at MER, CAC, LTV, those are like the 3 that you need to know. And if you want to get fancy, you can go in with AOV, right? Those are such critical things, but they all have to do with what's actually going to the client.
I don't even know what those mean. LTV, like lifetime value?
Yeah, lifetime value, average order value, cost per acquired customer, and media efficiency ratio. Media efficiency ratio is what publicly traded companies will base their marketing off of. It's essentially how much money is coming in versus how much is going out. It's like company ROAS. But it keeps it from becoming, wow, we had 1,000% return on ad spend inside of Google Ads, and then you find out your new versus returning rate is 2 to 8. That's
so
not
what he's
building
saying
the
is,
company.
again, I'm going to simplify this. Again, this is what's also exciting is that you clearly are passionate about this. I got passionate about it too.
Yeah.
Google Ads and Facebook, these platforms will try to take credit.
Yeah.
So like I had this issue too when I was using Facebook ads, is I was getting all these conversions. I was really frustrated because you open your account up, right? And you look at the return on ad spend, which just means how much money did you make from advertising? And I would look at my Facebook account and it was amazing. It was like, oh my God, you're making, you're only spending, and I wasn't spending a lot. It's like you're spending $50 and you're making $500 and you're thinking like, wow. But what you don't understand is necessarily where did the conversion come from? And I found a lot of the conversions that Facebook was taking credit for was actually organic referrals from my affiliates, like on YouTube.
Yeah.
And this happens with Google Ads too. So I know we are nerding out here a little bit.
Yeah.
The cool thing to understand, guys, is that if you take the course or if you learn about this stuff, it's very accessible. And once you start to get the basics, then you can have a nerdy conversation on YouTube about So anyway, man, this has obviously been a huge transformation for you. And can you just speak a little bit to the, what your life is like now with this job and how it plays into, having a family and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So not working 80 hours a week really helps with being around for your family. And so being able to have flexibility at this job that I can just, I can take time off when I need to take time off. I can, get home in time to actually see my wife before, it's super late at night. I'm not working overnight anymore. I'm not getting off at 6 a.m., all these different advantages that I had no choice about previously. I now have a choice. One of the biggest things is my wife and I decided to be a single income family, so she could stay home and, raise our child, and we want to home educate our child. And we can't do that on, $15 an hour. The cost of living is too much or whatever it is. And so we were in a dilemma, right? But then through working, digital marketing, growing, learning, getting your value, and then framing your value rightly to your employer so that they can see it, everything flew from there. And then, just being honest about what I needed with my employer and not being afraid to, take a step of faith in that way. It has allowed us now to have a single family income and not have to worry about, are we gonna make rent, are we gonna have enough food, money for food. We can live a decent, modest lifestyle. We don't need like the huge house, but we can live in a nice home. We can eat organic food. We can have a nice car. We don't need anything else. And it's something that it was kind of like just a nice dream before. But now that, I've been, blessed with a job where I have all this flexibility and the pay, it blows my mind to think that I'm here. And the flip side of that is that you continue to bring value in the comfort, continuing to, work hard. But if you work hard and you bring the value, employers are more than happy to reward you for that.
You mentioned that a few times. I think that paints a really good picture. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm still, helping people in this 7 years after starting it, is because, people, I think, there's a lot of hard workers out there, and it sounds like you were working hard at your other job. But to get rewarded for your hard work and to be appreciated, is the real thing people consistently say about this field. It's what happened with me. When I had an in-house job at a private company, and I was a hustler, and I hustled and I made some changes and I got results, and they were so excited about it that they just kept rewarding me and appreciating me, and I got respect, and it drove me to want to work harder. And I was thinking about my career before that, and I said, I worked, whatever service jobs or in an office. I never got that kind of acknowledgement. And it's like, if you're in a salaried office job that's not like in this field, that's not about results, then you could work, really hard, and maybe you'll get like a, employee of the month, or like, oh, good job, from your boss. And it's not. I remember we had an employee of the month at this one company, and I just was like, I felt like I was back in middle school. I was like, what? It's like a pat on the back. Like, give me more money, like give me like something substantial, not just like a piece of cake. It's like silly. It's so anyway, man, it sounds like you've had a huge transformation. So I'm very happy for you. I'm going to wrap this up, but I also want to ask, is it okay if people reach out to you on LinkedIn if they have any questions?
Yes, absolutely. Reach out to me. I love just helping people, in general. I received all of this pretty freely, and so I'm happy to give it away. No one's ever withheld anything from me, so I want to not withhold anything from anybody else.
So anyway, is there anything you would like to say to me or anybody watching the video?
Yeah. So firstly, to you, Seth, thanks you for just being faithful to, make the course. And it was instrumental in my life. And so thank you. And for anybody who's watching this video, feel free to reach out to me over LinkedIn or even in the group chat of the course. And I'd love to just talk and answer any questions you got.
Awesome, man. We really appreciate that. And thanks so much for sharing your story with everybody. It's always inspiring. I'm very happy for you. I'm excited to see where you go next. Obviously you're already very happy, but as you said, you're going to end up making six figures either at this current agency or at another company. And we'll definitely do another interview down the road. So again, thanks for being here, man. And we'll stay in touch.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you.